This is Believe in Buckeyes. I'm Brian Browning with All-American cornerback Chindy Chekwa. Bye week this week, man. So you should have been able to catch a little bit of break, man. Catch a little bit of breather. Or are you still grieving, man? What's going on? How you feeling?
No. This past weekend for me was a celebration. We went to celebrate a friend's 10-year anniversary party. They knew to schedule this on the bye week, right? they knew they knew what the task was. Scheduled on a
That's,
bye week. We
that's good
celebrated.
friends, man.
Watched a lot of college football as well. That was built into the weekend a little bit. Yeah, some great friends, so they understood what you're supposed to do during college football season. So
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So with it being a bye, man, I don't know about you. Like you said, you moved on, but I'm still grieving, man. I still want to kind of talk about the Oregon game a little bit because I mean, obviously, as things kind of go down, and obviously, once it happens, you have like the initial reaction, right? This is how you
yeah,
feel. You're upset. Your team lost or won, wherever that reaction is. But then with a bye week, you got a little bit more time, right? We don't have a game this week, so we can kind of pour it into it a little bit more. And obviously, several news things kind of came out that was I don't know really big news around Ohio State about that game and about really I guess the coaching and the strategy that Oregon took to get themselves prepared for that game, and obviously it kind of helped them rise to the top. And obviously their ultimate goal is to win the game, right? Like Ohio State's, but it just felt like Oregon coaching staff did a little bit more to kind of get the job done. Would you say?
yeah. I mean, they were prepared, and obviously, this is a game that you have circled on the schedule. Like this is a big game. It's not just. It's obviously a big game for the Big Ten and being able to be in position to get to a Big Ten championship. It's also a big game just in general to measure where you at as an Oregon football team. I mean, you coming from the Pac-12, right? Ohio State has been on the top of college football for many years, and Oregon has been up there too.
Mhm.
But you as Oregon Coach Landon, you still figure like a team like Ohio State really um, is a team that continues to kind of show where are we at as a school and as a team, and it's huge for recruiting, right? It's huge for recruiting, and they're actively recruiting a lot of the same guys, and we talk about it a lot with the difference in Oregon and Ohio. Ain't no player, ain't no 5 stars in Oregon for real, right? So,
Right.
this is huge for him, and it was a big win for him all in all. The coaches and a lot of the stuff following the game comes out, but they had a plan. They clearly had a plan. We talked about some of the things they're going to have to do to win the game. And they did a little bit more. The onside kick or whatever, the strategy around there. The big thing that came out though was Coach Lanning kind of confirming that the 12 men on the field defensively was kind of was on purpose, right? It
Right.
was
Yeah.
he identified a little bit of a loophole in the situation. He mentioned that they kind of practice these situations. You obviously don't know if that's actually going to be a factor in any game. And it came up, they executed it, and it benefited them.
Yeah, yeah. So if you guys, I mean, I'm sure most of you guys have watched the show, caught it. But just to kind of replay it, so it's 10 seconds left in the game. Ohio State has one timeout, and we just had the bad offensive pass interference called against Jeremiah Smith. So we're kind of in a backed up situation. This is a timeout, so right, they have time to kind of, I guess, identify like, hey, this is the situation we've been practicing, right? So Oregon lines up with their 11 man. Obviously, they're trying to take away the sidelines and anything deep. And then essentially, as they get lined up, they run a DB onto the field off their sideline. And like I said, I mean, obviously, they practiced the situation, so they had that spot. And so essentially what they weighed is, right, the penalty for 12 men on the field that's not in the formation. If they're in the formation, lined up there before the snap, they'll blow it dead. We get to 5 yards, nothing happens. But to run them out there essentially right before you snap the ball, they understand it's going to be a 5-yard gain for the offense, but really 5 yards doesn't help them much because the biggest thing for them is time on the clock, and they're able to lose 4 seconds while Ohio State ran that play. I think they ended up throwing maybe a comeback or something to the opposite sideline. But, obviously 12 men on the field is obviously a huge advantage. And,
Yeah.
he kind of smirked about it, laughed about it. Obviously the NCAA did something about it right away.
This is
But
the fastest. First of all, this is the fastest I've ever seen NCAA react. So, bro.
oh yeah, that was definitely history time frame right there. Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. But they did something about it right now. You know, if something happens like that in the future, they allow the offensive team to like make a decision. Okay, like you can get the 5 yards, but you also keep the time on the clock. You don't have to be penalized due to the defense. The defense, I don't know, trying to take advantage of the situation. But also, I mean, I guess it just kind of goes into coaching, right? I mean, like, so obviously Oregon had some very specific things that they was trying to accomplish in this game. You know, we talked about last week the hurry up offense, right? You know, most teams doesn't really huddle, but you still about, I don't know, 15, 20 plus seconds before in between snaps of the ball. And it kind of looked like maybe old school Oregon on the chip, because a few times there they just kind of ran up there, hurry up, got lined up and called the play, which left our defense in scramble.
Yeah.
Obviously, some of those miscommunications led to some big plays, right, as we kind of broke down on our page as well. So that's a switch up there. And then I think the biggest switch up that we heard Dylan Gabriel actually in an interview with Coach Urban Meyer talking about is that, you know, going to the game, they felt like Ohio State defensive backs haven't been tested deep. And they felt that it was a point of emphasis for them to attack Ohio State deep in their play call. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that? Like, you know, I guess, you know,
I think that's a good point. I think that
specific
point. And I didn't fully get to see the interview, but I did see kind of that clip of Dylan Gabriel just talking about how DBs haven't all year, they hadn't really been tested deep. And they kind of needed to be able to get some chunk plays in order to win the game. And this is where coaching really comes into play. Obviously, we know coaching is important. But where you really see it come into play is really kind of anticipating what are you going to get from this team. And I'm not just talking about scheme. I just mean just in general. Like, what is this environment going to feel like? What are we going to have to react to? There's going to be a sudden change. We don't know where it's going to come from, but there's going to be a sudden change at some point where they make a play. It's a turnover. It's an onside, a surprise onside kick. It's something. They get a play. And we got to rush the defense on the field. We're backed up. They got all the momentum. We got to be able to react to. This is the type of things you create in a practice situation. Understand, we're going on the road. We're gonna have a game plan. We're gonna prepare for what we see see on film. But there's some of this stuff we're not even gonna be able to prepare for. So we're gonna have to take a punch and be able to deliver it back. But what Dylan Gabriel mentioned, and we talked about it going in, is that this is a team in Oregon that had been doing a lot of dink and dunk. You know, not really getting a lot of chunk plays. But we know they have to in these big games get some explosive plays. We knew that was going to be a key thing. And how do you react to that on defense? And how do you prepare the guys for it? That first explosive play, Denzel Burke, it was a double move on the outside. You know, he's been jumping routes all year. Like, he's been seeing it. He's been going. He hasn't hesitated. He's been making plays. He's been getting picks. And when you're a player that's doing that, it's up to you and it's up to your coaches to, at practice, line them up against good on good. Line them up against Jeremiah Smith. Line them up against Emeka Ibuka. And run a double move. Run something that you would run against an aggressive corner that you were facing, right? I think back to my time at Ohio State, similar situation, right? I got to a point where I wasn't getting them tested a lot. I was trying to read quick game. I was attacking the offense. What would Tressel do? We'll go against the ones. The Veer Posey, double move. Dang, deep ball, right? Keeping me honest, reminding me, and they make some plays, and then it'd be a meltdown on defense, right? That whole we gotta get our head out of we gotta lock in or whatever. And I wouldn't think nothing of it. But when I got to the game, I knew, like, okay, we're playing Miami, right? They might try to test me on the double move. At Miami week, my senior year, I got some deep balls in practice. I gave up some deep balls in practice, all right? But I got to the game going against an elite receiver in Travis Benjamin, and what did I get? Double move on the outside, right? Reacted to the first move, was able to get turned around, get back in position, and make the play. But I didn't have to think about that. That was something that was prepared for during the week. That was the coaches thinking forward and understanding that, hey, this guy's been aggressive all year. Coach Fickle. Hey, tap me. He might tap me and say, hey, they're gonna try you. You got a couple. You made a couple plays against Marshall. You made a couple plays early on. They're gonna try you on the double move here soon. And that always been in the back of my mind. So Jim Knowles mentioned it after the game. He said, maybe we got to put them more in these pressure situations. And I think that's just a key part. I think Oregon was really prepared. Obviously, they were playing at home, right? There was some things in their advantage. They were the underdog and all those things. But Ohio State, not going against a top team early on, you really have to try to curate those situations so that when they're going against a team with tempo, they know they got to get lined up. I don't care what the call is. Y'all not getting the call in on time, we got to check. Whoever it is, the Mike linebacker, give us a check. We're going to play cover 2. We're going to play whatever. I just don't think they handle those situations well. The good thing is they have a bye week. They're going to be able to go over the film all week and get that stuff corrected, because that's going to be the difference in winning and losing these types of games.
Yeah, man, I just think that's huge, though. I mean, obviously, Coach Day, right? Obviously, this is his first year where he's not, primarily, in control of the offense, right? We got Chip Kelly here, and and we're expecting, like I think you said all the time, we're waiting for him to kind of be that general, that team general that kind of knows the full pulse of his team and what is needed. And I just think that, like you just said, I mean, that's like huge information right there. I don't think I really even knew that situation, right? So we're seniors together, right? I'm on the offensive line, and you're, obviously you're a defensive back, you're in the corner position. It's nothing we talk about. They're not telling us like, hey, we need to get, Jim be ready for double moves,
right?
Because he's having a great season and he's, confident in his ability. The coaches know, they just kind of work it in there, and right? And so, Coach, like you say, Coach Fickle say a little something to you. Coach Tressel, who essentially ran the offense, worked with the offense a lot, made sure that it happened, right? Running with some good guys. I mean, I guess real quick while you're on it, like, what's the difference? Like, you said Coach knows when to pit his players in that pressure situation. That's a tad bit different than a scout team running a double move. Then, like you stated, right, DeVere Posey, Dane Sadsbacher running double moves, who's our starting wide receiver unit at the time, right? I mean, that has to it has to feel different, right?
It just feels different, right? When that period comes and it's third down period, 1 versus 1s, we know to lock in. Like when we're doing scout team stuff, we're getting the look, we're doing that, we're trying to take it serious, but it's just not. It just doesn't feel the same. You don't feel the same level of pressure. You're not going against a guy. Even when you give up a play versus the scout team, the coaches try to jump on you and say, you like, man, it's not that big of a deal. But when I lined up against DeVere, my mindset changed. It's third down. It felt like the game for a second. It felt like a real situation, and I'm locked in. When I lined up against Dane, I'm locked in. And now, we don't know what we're going to get from the offense. When we go against a scout team, we've been prepping for the team. We've been prepping or whatever. We kind of know. When we went against our starters, we didn't know what we were getting. And sometimes your offense will run the stuff that the team that we're going to play runs. Because I would be like, y'all don't never run this. Like, since when did DeVere go deep out of this formation? I've never seen that before, right? But somehow they'll build it in just to make sure that we're able to handle it. And that's what's necessary. Because the reality is, man, you get into you start to get comfortable, right? When you're a good team and you're going against inferior opponents, you start to get comfortable. And you start to believe that this is reality. Oh, yeah, we go, we're the number one top defense. We got all the top players, blah, blah, blah. But you're just not used to feeling that level of pressure.
Yeah.
And honestly, when you get to a game and you haven't gotten used to, you haven't gotten acclimated, you don't know how to turn it on, you ain't gonna be able to flip the switch in the game. It's just you ain't gonna be able to flip the switch. Now, this is kind of a wake-up call moving forward, where that switch may never turn off again. But it's really up to the coaches to make sure that they just continue to create those pressure situations throughout the season.
Yeah, for sure. And so obviously this week we had a bye week, and Coach Day still, did spend some time with the press, and he stated obviously this week, self scouting. It's a bye week, right? Bye week in the middle of the season. Obviously this is Ohio State second bye week, but this one feels like it's more in tune with the actual bye week that you usually have one per season. So he said, he did a lot of self scouting, but what's interesting is obviously after the Oregon, I guess it's not a surprise. He stated that he spent most of his time on the defensive side of the ball and kind of looking at what was going over there, their options and things of that nature. But I guess two things on that, right? First off, what do you think Coach Day's doing exactly, right? Obviously we know he's an offensive guy, and he's a former quarterback. No surprise there, but obviously he's now has this ability to kind of play both sides of the fence, with all sides of the fence when needed, since they go to offense to Chip Kelly. That, and then also it just feels like what Knowles is stating is, get the guys in a pressure situation. Why haven't they been in the pressure? He's been coaching a long time. So what do you think Coach Day has got kind of going on over there? What he's kind of checking into, and also a little bit more into Knowles, and is there any type of issues with the defense? Any type of friction from I don't know?
Yeah.
From the birdies in the air. I don't know.
Yeah, listen, we've heard the rumblings. This isn't a gossip show, right? So what's not verified, I don't really have time for, right? But there's been consistent rumblings about some conflict between Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson, who's a defensive line coach, right? And what we know is the defense that Jim Knowles has run when he did Oklahoma State, and when he had Oklahoma State as one of the top defenses, is not necessarily the defense that he's running in at Ohio State, not fully. So I don't know what's changed, and I don't know where that philosophy change comes from. If it's because of that potential conflict, or is it because Ryan Day wants a certain type of defense? And the one thing I don't buy is the idea of this head coach of the defense fully, right? There's a head coach of the team. That head coach at some point has to set the philosophy for the entire team.
Yeah.
And that is what the defensive coordinator can work underneath, right? Now that head coach may say, you have full autonomy. You do whatever you want to do. I'm going to focus on offense. Or he may say, look, we're going to be an explosive offense, or we're going to be an offense that runs the ball, whatever. On defense, what we need to do is not give up explosive plays, be really good in the red zone, and not give up touchdowns, right? That's a philosophy, right? That's saying, look, in the middle of the field, I don't want too many blitzes. I don't want all the exotic blitzes. I just want us to contain. And when they get to the red zone, we don't let them score. That's when we tighten things down. We'll let them score. That's the philosophy. That would be what the defensive coordinator is working on.
Yeah.
So to me, Ryan Day spending time with the defense on the bye week is important, because him being the CEO of the team, he has to really give the green light to say, okay, this is the things that went wrong. This is the umbrella that you have to work under to decide how you're going to fix it. In terms of the potential conflict between Knowles and Larry Johnson, I think at the end of the day, those two got to figure it out. They're both older coaches who've been in this game for a long time. Right? They're not learning a ton of new tricks, right? However, there is something to the fact that Jim Knowles is not at Oklahoma State, right? He's at Ohio State. And the talent level is different. There is some balance of scheme and talent. There is an opportunity for both of them to have some input on how this defense is run, with Jim Knowles ultimately being able to implement his philosophy. Look, he's getting paid $2 million for it, right? At some point, we have to rely and trust him to do exactly what he came here to do. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing that's needed is more aggression and doing more defensively to create pressure. And I think they recognized that this week after what they saw against Oregon and the inability to affect the quarterback. But even more so, I also think just being able to get the guys, the play call in, lined up and ready to go before the snap to be able to execute better. Honestly, if they just executed the play calls again in that game, they don't lose that game. So I think it's both, but I think Ryan Day is doing the right thing. Get on the defensive side, figure out the issues, give them create that pressure for that defense to make sure that all that stuff is fixed, but also give Jim Knowles the green light to actually do what you hired him to do.
Yeah, and just real quick, I mean, we know real quick on the defense, and we're gonna go elsewhere, but just we know, right? We got talent all at every level. We have talented guys, right? So let those talented guys go out there and make some plays, and not
Yeah.
play some uh catch defense where they're just standing around and hoping the offense make a mistake. Unleash them so they could attack and they could kind of force some of those plays to kind of come up and be made. But I guess real quick, we want to talk about the state of college football, right? I mean, obviously, like you said, this weekend you watched a lot of ball. It was a very interesting weekend, right? Texas, number one team in the nation, loses to Georgia. Alabama lost again, right? They lose a game to Tennessee. And then Michigan, they lose again, and again, right? Michigan lost again. Looks like they are still trying to figure out their quarterback situation. But I guess, when the season ends, do you think there will be an undefeated team going into these college playoffs? Because really with these conferences, it's really seeming very unlikely at this point.
I don't think there will be. There may be. Maybe a BYU is able to finish off undefeated, or I don't think none of the teams at the top remain undefeated. Because it seems like there's a lot more parity in college football with guys being able to find the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't, I think Alabama might have had 30 guys transfer or something crazy. Like, you're not stacking up talent like you used to. Guys are going to find opportunities to go play, witnessed by the guys who transferred in Indiana and now are making plays.
Number one in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, so I think it gets spread out. The love for Alabama, I mean, I think after this year it may fade, right? Because every team that they play, it looks like a potential loss. And it was interesting watching them play Tennessee, because Tennessee really felt like the better team. All the mistakes they made, all the turnovers in the first half, etc. Alabama never really felt like they were really truly in control of that football game to be able to just pull away, even though Tennessee played horrible on offense. So, yeah, I think a lot of parity across college football is going to make it so that a lot of teams go into the playoffs with losses. And then once the playoffs start, honestly, it's going to be, any team can win.
Yeah, as always, it's football. It's going to come down to executing your game plan and essentially, staying healthy. But you mentioned the team that I guess we want to kind of, a little double click on. You mentioned the Indiana Hoosiers, man, 7-0 under Coach Kirk Cinetti, number 13 in the polls. Like I said, 7-0. So all of these big conferences, they're currently the number one team in the Big Ten. Have you caught much Indiana? Like, what are they doing, man? How are they out here? Like, really? I mean, they just took it to Nebraska. Like, what are they doing, man?
Yeah, I mean, kudos to the coach, man. He came in there. He talked his talk coming in, and he's now backing it up, which is interesting, because I was. I didn't take much of it. I didn't think much of it when he initially did the press conference and just kind of talked about how he wins games and whatnot.
No, let me get it right. He said, "Hey, Google me. I win. I win straight up." Yeah.
But they seem to have a very effective approach. They know who they are. They have a lot of depth at the receiver position, and they're spreading the ball around. They're getting the matchups on offense that they want. Number one receiver, number two, number three, whoever it is. Third down comes, they're finding those matchups, and they're making plays. And they are a dangerous team in the Big Ten, which part of me likes, because with the fall off of that team up north, which I'm praying on their downfall, and and Washington losing a bunch of guys and losing their coach and not still trying to get back to what they were. USC not really turning out to be the USC that I guess that comes with the hype of the name, but they never really have fulfilled that under Lincoln Riley. We kind of need another team to kind of merge into that first or second tier. Honestly, I don't know where Indiana feels like they're in that top tier right now. How they finish out the season will determine where they end up. But yeah, I mean they're out there. The way they beat Nebraska to me was surprising.
Yeah.
I think that was the final wake up call to say this is a serious football team because Nebraska's a solid team. I think they're about a year away from like real contention, maybe 1 or 2 years, but they're a solid football team, and Indiana made them look like they were.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It was very impressive. I mean, I guess one thing to mention, though, like you said, their wide receivers are dynamic. They spread the ball. They don't care who making the plays. Like, those guys are just kind of going and get it. But their quarterback did get injured. Curtis Roy injured his thumb against Nebraska. But the backup, Taven Jackson, he was the starter from last season. So they still got a guy there with a ton of experience. So obviously we'll see how they progress moving forward. This is an Indiana team that we see this season, second to last game, right before we play our rivalry, the team up north. We face this Indiana team. So I think they, like I said, they've been playing well, looking dynamic. But we'll see if they can kind of continue with, especially, with the injury bug kind of coming in on their quarterback. But like you say, this weekend we have Nebraska. Nebraska's currently 5-2. They only lost to good teams, right? They lost to Illinois, so we just seen them beat Michigan, and obviously they did lay an egg against Indiana. They got kind of got ran over there. But I mean, the biggest story is Matt Rule, college football. I think it's year 2 with Nebraska, and obviously he has some talent under center there, with Dylan Raiola being the starting quarterback, who was formerly committed to Ohio State before he decommitted. He kind of jumped around a bit, but obviously he's now playing in Nebraska. And to be honest, he's not bad for a true freshman, right? I mean,
yeah, I think he's good, and I think he's going to be a good player for them for the next few years. With Nebraska's they're a solid college football team. They got a young quarterback who's going to play like a young quarterback, but he has a bright future, but he's still a freshman, right? And that's where this conversation kind of starts and ends for me, the quarterback. All right, because what I'm looking at from this game is not enough to beat Nebraska. Like we're past celebrating the win against an opponent that's of lesser talent. Now they have to beat them first, right? We have to.
Yeah.
Like, that's still important. You got to go get the win. But how they get the win to me is going to be most important, and specifically defensively. How did you affect the quarterback this game? That's all I'm looking for. Because what I've seen in big games is the inability to affect the quarterback. Inability to affect the quarterback. I go back to that loss against Michigan in Jim Knowles' first year. That was the closest in the big game that they got to affecting the quarterback. That one was, they were getting oddly close to hitting J.J. McCarthy, and he was just getting rid of the ball, and it was a big play every single time. They may have known the defensive play call. I don't know, but it just seemed like every single time they were so close. But outside of that, in these big games, they have not been able to put the necessary pressure on the quarterback that they need for it to be for them to win.
Yeah.
So I'm no longer assuming that they have a plan for the big game. I need to see it every single week. What are you doing on the defensive line? What are you doing in terms of pressure packages? What do you do in third and long? What do they do in third and long? It's not enough to show blitz and play coverage every time. You have to actually put real pressure on this quarterback. And with the freshman at Nebraska, he's a good player. However, you put pressure on this kid, it'll be a long game for Nebraska.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, because funny enough, with Jim Knowles' defense, last thing, we wrap up the show here. But like you stated, year 1 with Jim Knowles, we had some pressures, right? We were doing some things exactly like I said, was that close to getting to JJ. And it felt like, our defensive backs just did not know quite how to handle, the fire zone situations, right? The coverage a little bit off, and it led to big plays. And then the second year, right? We stop all blitzing, and we're just going to focus on playing our lanes. We're going to really be strong and know how to play the run. Everybody's going to beat the offensive. The defensive line is going to beat the offensive lineman in front of them and let that lead them to the play. And we took a whole season and we did that, right? We that's how we ran it. We was asking, like, what's up with the sacks? Why would I get to the court? What's going on? So in my mind, year 3 is like, okay, we did this one year.
Exactly.
Year 2, we did this. We about to blend this thing together with all these veteran players, and we still haven't got it. So obviously, like you said, it has to be there. It's time to call it. It's time to execute. It's time to really light some guys up, and hopefully we get that here at Ohio State homecoming weekend in the shoe. So that's our show for today. Follow us on all platforms. Follow us on YouTube. If we get a chance, it's homecoming, man. We might have a chance to jump on live. I don't know. We might be at the stadium. Who knows, man, where we'll be this weekend. But please stay tuned to us as we bring you Ohio State news. As always, we're going to end our show with an
Don't forget. So I had my second bet this past weekend. We didn't talk about
man,
it.
You won some money.
Second bet this past weekend. I lost this time. I made the worst mistake possible. Don't laugh at me. I bet on Purdue to cover the spread. I bet on Purdue. They had a new quarterback. Had a quarterback change. He let it come back the week before. I figured, they're 30-point underdogs. They could hold it to about 20, 25, 20, 28 points.
Man.
They couldn't do
it. He jumped on Bet Online, placed a bet on Purdue on a Friday night game. I understand. I see where your mind was at.
Friday night.
I see where you
night game. After Oregon, they already had a big game, right? They coming back on Friday night against Purdue in Purdue. You know how playing in Purdue could be a little weird.
How tricky it can get. Well, it was a tricky Friday night for the Ducks, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I got on Bet Online where they have all the stats, they have everything for live betting. They also have an online casino. I almost bet on I almost bet on the I think it was the Mississippi State game. Mississippi State was another one. Purdue and Mississippi State have been getting blown out all year. But that game, the spread was wide enough that I felt like there was an opportunity. I should have been on Mississippi State. Mississippi State did cover the spread.
Man.
But yeah.
That was, man. But hey, man, good luck this weekend. That's all I can say to that. Hey, we're going to end this with an OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks. Talk to you guys soon.
Go Bucks.